This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We have a wonderful conversation. You have implied that you would like to talk about meditation.
Yes, because there are so many, I use the word voices, but there are so many ways that people advise that you do it. And of course, when I was first exposed to it, this is the way you do it. And and it didn't feel comfortable to me, but I thought, well, it's me, it's my problem, and I'm the one. And so I struggle because this is the way you do it. And then now, many years later, there have been so many different ways to approach it. And so I just thought you might like to talk about that because I have my thoughts and we'll mix them all in.
There you go. Well, big picture, and this might cut the conversation really short, is the idea in a meditation, which is different than in a prayer, is to make enough of a quiet space that the still small voice of the infinite can be heard. Now, in a prayer, especially a practical prayer, what we are doing is being very clear about the intentionality that we're creating in consciousness and communicating that with that infinite creative power that creates everything. And one of the things that we can pray for is wisdom, guidance, or insight. Well, in order for the wisdom, guidance, or insight to show up, we really need to shut up so that we can hear it.
Okay.
If I say I want a sign and then I close my eyes, or I'm looking down at my phone and I'm not paying attention to the sign, okay, well, what happened? Okay, a whole squadron of fighters just flew overhead going in that direction. Or there was a billboard that said, go to this place. And if I'm not paying attention, then I'm not going to get the benefits of what it was that I said that I wanted. So meditation is about a technique that lets us quiet our mind so that we can hear the infinite when it tells us something new.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I remember the real simple definition I heard, I can't even remember who said it, but prayer is talking to God and meditation is listening. And I thought,
Yep.
Okay, that's pretty simple. That's just really simple. But then as I read how-to books and how-to videos on YouTube, it gets really cumbersome. It really does. You got to breathe a certain way. And, the perfectionist in me cropped up and, said, okay, I'm going to breathe a certain way. I'm going to do this. I was just thoroughly exhausted and then frustrated and just this is crazy. Rather than to say not to do it, I found my own way. But listen, there's just too much noise out there. Psalm 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. I said, you know what? That's gold. That is gold.
Yeah.
You can give it the metaphysical interpretation however you want to, but just be still and then see what happens.
Well, that makes it sound really easy.
It makes it sound, but it's a place to start, let me, at least I know that stillness is a part of the agenda.
Right. And there was something that you said, which is actually a key element in the meditative, in the orientation of meditation. You said there's a lot of noise out there, and that is correct. And there's a lot of noise in here. So the estimate is that people have up to 70,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. I did the arithmetic. I got my little calculator out and I did the arithmetic. That's 49 thoughts per minute, which is almost one a second. Well, if your mind is chattering at that rate of 48 a minute, there's a lot of noise in here. And meditation is about getting those, not necessarily to stop, but just to hold off until we're done with the meditation so that we can have a space that's not filled up with our 70,000 daily thoughts. So lots of ways of doing it.
That was going to be my point. I think there are different ways depending on your personality and the way that you just approach different things. For me, I just cannot have the group thing is okay, but I can't because just the group itself is a distraction. You know, there are other human beings around with thoughts that are going nuts. They're not going nuts, but the thoughts to me are going nuts because it's all, and I'm not saying I read all the thoughts, but I do feel them. And so you have to find your space.
Absolutely.
And I'm not sure if there's a right or wrong. I'm just saying, I think it may be a right or wrong in terms of what's right for you.
Absolutely. And I mean, the advice, the best guidance ever given was by the goddess Nike, who said, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. And what that means is instead of trying to figure out what's going to be the best meditation technique for me, and then doing all of the mental exercises of trying to figure it out, pick one and try it and notice what happens. The idea is that we want to be able to turn away from the thoughts. Now, we can't stop our thoughts. Our brains, our minds are created to be thinking. And so the thought that, I'm just to stop thinking for 15 minutes, that's not going to happen. What we will be able to do in many ways is to let the thoughts go by, to not get locked into them or to buy into them or to have them be the sum total of our focus, but to allow ourselves a little bit of space where we're not focused on the thoughts. So what works for me, and it turns out that it works for me, is to do 15 minutes pretty much in silence. I use the Insight Timer app on my phone, and it plays 3 gongs to tell me the 15 minutes is starting. And then every 5 minutes, it plays another gong. And at the end of 15 minutes, it plays 3 more. And that works for me. And what that does is it lets me stay present. And sometimes when the intermediate gongs go off, it reminds me, oh, I'm lost in thoughts, thinking about something different. And it lets me bring myself back. And sometimes when I'm dozing off, it wakes me up and says, you know, you want to pay attention because spirit might be saying something and you don't want to be sleeping through it. There are background sounds that I have tried and I don't like them because they're distracting for me. And my ear is such that if it's a repetitive track, like a loop, I can hear where the loop is. And I can, even if it's a babbling brook, I can hear this is the same part of the brook playing again that it does every 3 minutes. And that distracts me. So I don't do that. There are people who I'm friends with who are musicians. They can't have background music because they just get lost in this is the chord and this is the cadence and this is the tempo and all the rest of it. And so their minds get taken over because they know too much about music. If sitting in silence for 15 minutes is great for you, great. And if it makes you crazy because you really want to have something going on, then do a guided meditation. Do a yoga nidra. Do some other breath work practice. Try. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of different ways to meditate. Try a second one. And if that doesn't work, then try a third one. And by golly, you might try 3 dozen of them and then go back to the second one you tried because it turns out of all of them, that's my favorite. Just do it.
Just do it. Just do it. I'm an excellent student. I'm telling you, if there's nothing else I am
Yes,
in life,
you are.
I'm a student. And I have just enormous respect for the teacher. So I'm like wired to, if the teacher says it, try it, try it, try it. And I just kind of went, gaga with all of that in terms of meditation, because there's a lot of meditation teachers, and they're telling you all something different. And then but this is something also that helps me. The worship that's familiar is worship that's meaningful. Or you could say it the other way, worship that's meaningful is worship that's familiar. And put any word in there that you want. And I'll ask myself, listen, Lawrence, how you going to do this? I'll get to a point where I'm done. I'm done with this. And I go back to God created. God created, however you look at it. We have different personalities and different ways to approach things. So I'm thinking, why are you struggling to do something different than you normally would? You're not wired this way. So I'm wired for quiet. And when I was in Pittsburgh way too many years ago to tell you, I was living there, and there was a river that I would go to every single day. And it was just really nice. And it was always moving, just really stuff going by. And I think about those things that were floating by are thoughts. So I would just toss my thoughts into the river and watch them just go away. And it wouldn't be long before, I'm not saying I wasn't thinking, I wasn't consciously thinking. I was just at peace, at calm, and not attached to any particular thought. I just watched it float by, and I said, you know what, that's you. Why try to fix it up differently? Because you're going to flunk. Just be who you. Just do it your way.
The point there isn't, it's not about not having the thought, which you said is really important. It's about not getting attached to the thought. The thought comes by, and if we let it hook our attention and then we start thinking about that because, the thought was, did I turn the oven off? Instead of saying, if I weren't sitting here doing the meditation, I wouldn't be thinking about the oven, so I don't need to think about that now. If the oven is on, the oven will be turned off at the perfect time. I can just let it go. Instead of going and obsessing about that, or what's on my to-do list, or what did she mean when she said that, or any of those other things that come along and try and hook our attention. We can just let them go by. And it's when our thoughts get hooked that we stop being in a meditative state and start being in an active thinking state. And it drags us off of the intention that we had of meditating.
I think like anything else, I just talk to it, right? I said, look, I'll get back to you. With that, I'll get back to you. I can't deal with you right now. I can't. And let it go, because that's me acknowledging that I am not going to be hooked to this right now. It's there.
Right.
It may or may not come back, but it's just cool with me to say it consciously, say, not right now. I'll get back to you. And after a bit, it's okay. But, people think that I'm a little odd anyway, so maybe that's not the recommended way to do it or suggested, but I just remember the river and the thoughts.
Yeah. The right way to meditate is the way that works for you. One of the visualizations that we do in our entry-level New Thought class is you visualize your mind as a pond, a pool of water, with ripples blowing across the surface, which could be from a little current, or they could be from a breeze or whatever. And the ripples are the thoughts. And as we consciously watch the ripples go by, we can stop paying attention to the ripples and start paying attention to the surface of the water and let the ripples calm down a little bit. And eventually what we get to is, instead of being a bunch of ripples, there's a smooth, clear surface, and we get to be aware of the depth that's there. And if the thought comes along, if a ripple blows across the surface, we can say, oh, look, it's a ripple, and let it go. Because if it needs our attention, it'll come back.
Right. I agree with that. It's all about being in a receptive place, I think. And if you're thinking and engaging, you're not really receptive to the something else or to whatever else. And I'm always open to whatever else. I don't really have something that I don't go into it saying, I want an answer to this or that. because that's too disappointing for me. If it does, if I get it good, if I don't, I'm going to be upset or feel like, okay, is this something? I'm just receptive, so whatever comes, it comes. I thought about the last Great Dane I had as you were talking, and he was just extremely attached to me. I would move my foot and his foot would go into that place my last foot was. So meditation was very interesting. So I tried to push him away, and I thought, why even bother? Just put your arm around him and he's quiet, and that's it. And maybe he was meditating, who knows? But whatever works, just whatever works. I tried putting him out one time, and I couldn't feel comfortable because I knew that he was stressed. So, so I just make it okay. So you don't have to worry about this, and this. Light, no light, candle, no candle. Watch out for the, the smoke alarm. That'll...
Well, that's learning. That's how we learn from experience. And there are lots of different ways to meditate, and try it. Try a way and then try a different way, and then you've got two that you can choose from, and do the one that you like better and try something else. Back to what we used to do in the marketing business is an A/B test. All right, this is currently my favorite sort of meditation. Let me try a different one and see if it becomes my favorite instead. Nope, I'm going to go back to the original one.
Yeah.
Let's take a break and continue talking about techniques for meditating and what it looks like to be bad at it.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcione. Bad at it.
About meditation.
Bad at it. I couldn't wait till the break was over.
So, and this, being bad at meditation. When I was running a team group, we would sometimes whenever we got together, we would do experiential exercises and workshop activities. And a fair number of times we would do a meditation. And we would tell the youth, please sit up to do this, don't lie down. And the reason that we don't want you to lie down is because it's likely that you'll fall asleep. And some of them, being teenagers, can you believe it, would lie down anyway. And at the end of the meditation, some of them would say, I fell asleep. That's how you do it badly. If the guidance and the instructions are, do this, and you do something different, and it doesn't work, that's meditating badly. And it's not because it's not punishment or somebody judging. It's like, if you set out to take a nap, then take a nap. Mm-hmm. But if you set out to do a meditation, then let's position ourselves and get ourselves in alignment with being able to accomplish what we want to accomplish. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes I have fallen asleep while sitting up. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's, and that happens. That absolutely happens, and that's okay. But what we want to do is make ourselves predisposed to success.
I'm glad you clarified that, 'cause
Well, that's what keeps people listening through the break.
I was right there. Okay, bad.
Judgmental? Reverend Bill is being judgmental about meditations? I got to stay around for this one. What are you talking about?
I did a quick flashback over the years, and now which one of these was really bad? Okay, well, several probably.
Yeah. And the bad one is the one that didn't work. And then just only bad because you knew ahead of time it wasn't going to work and you did it anyway. And we do that sometimes out of stubbornness, or we do that because we let somebody talk us into something. There are so many ways to do a meditation. There are people who just get so antsy when they're sitting still. They say, I can't sit there. I just can't sit there and be quiet. Okay. For them, there's mindfulness. There's a walking meditation. Go out in nature and do something different than you normally do when you're out taking a walk in nature. This is not a walk. This is not getting exercise. This is not taking the pooch for a walk. This is specifically a mindfulness meditative practice. Go out in nature, be quiet, be observant. Notice everything. Expand your awareness to everything. See how the leaves are fitting together on the trees. See how the trees are fitting together in the neighborhood or along the path. See the color of the dirt as it changes from over here to over there. Be aware, be mindful, and be not thinking about it, but just participating in it.
Okay, so you want to talk about hard. That would seem to be difficult.
That would make you crazy, right?
Because you're looking, you're comprehending, you're looking at this. You said notice and understand mindfulness, but can that be possibly distracting? To notice the trees, to notice this, and is it? That's a mindfulness exercise. I get it. Is it also meditation?
It can be. And the only person who can say whether that was a meditative process or not is the person who went through the experience and came out on the other side and said, wow, I feel even more connected to spirit, even more aware of my place in this divine creative process. So that's what we're looking for. I spent a fair number of years as a rock climber, both indoors in rock gyms and also outside on cliffs. And I found rock climbing to be particularly meditative. Now, hanging around the gym, chit-chatting with the other people who were climbing was not meditative at all. But there were times when I get myself on the wall and it is me and the holds on the wall and gravity. And it is about being completely focused on what it is that I'm doing next to engage in this moment. And everything else would fall away. It became a single pointed focus. And I really felt like I was in the zone meditatively. Not every climb felt that way. Not every day I had a climb in it that felt that way, but there were times when that was a meditative practice for me.
I can see that 100% because you're focused and detached from everything. And then also what you were doing was something you knew how to do. It didn't frighten you or, stress you out. So I could...
Well, it did, but that's something else that kept me from thinking about work. Or that I need to change the oil in my car. It's like, no, I'm 40 feet off the ground and there's just like granite underneath me. I'm present right here.
I love walking, and we used to walk at odd hours in the morning and just not be aware of whatever's around me, just walk. And one time I kind of focused and looked around. I thought, I don't think I need to be here. This is not a good place for me. And I wondered, how the heck did you get here anyway? I don't know what turn it was. I don't know. I got lost in it. And that was pretty wonderful, except I thought, you better really do a U-turn here. And is a U-turn going to work? You don't even know how you got here. And the folks around, the surroundings here do not look cool. So it was meditating in, not meditating out though, out of the space. But yeah.
Meditate in, run out.
So I'm not the most careful and cautious person when I'm out. So I've had to learn how to do that. But I think I could relate to focusing or just being present with what's around me. I can't pay attention to it though, because then I'll just zoom into whatever's happening. I never did that again. I figured I better try something else. It's not safe for me, but yeah, I was with you while you were talking about rock climbing. I've never done it and won't and will not, but I could see that. I could almost feel it. And I could see how that would be, a really wonderful meditative experience. Yeah.
I had another one that was similar to that. I actually, because I was living in Florida and I took up scuba diving. And this was before I found my spirituality. I was walking through my spiritual desert and then got scuba tanks. And I learned to dive. And I spent a lot of time doing it because it was very convenient. And it was, that was the good sport to have in Florida. And by the time I started developing my spiritual practice, I was good enough at diving that I didn't have to think about it. So scuba diving is a lot about looking, where's the bottom? How's my buoyancy? Am I bouncing off the bottom and destroying the coral? Am I floating up to the surface? How's my air supply going? Where'd my buddy go? What's that thing that's just brushed against my leg? By the time I got to the spiritual practice, I was comfortable enough scuba diving that I got to just let go of everything other than being in that moment and being aware of what's going on. And it's such an alien environment that it wasn't like seeing the trees and the leaves and the grass. It was about seeing the coral and the seaweed and the fish and being completely present to a different ecosystem that I got to participate in. Again, a hugely spiritual meditative practice for me. And if you say, I want to start meditating, let me get some scuba tanks, that's a long, heavy lift.
But what I hear you saying is that it's about being comfortable with whatever the environment may be. If it's walking, rock climbing, or whatever, it's being in a comfortable space. When I first was introduced to it, you had to sit up straight. And there was all kind of alignment that had to be in place. Took about 10 minutes to get all that worked out. And and then the breath, and I'm not slamming that, no shade on breathing or breath work or anything, but the concentration on the rightness of it was exhausting. And when you say just be comfortable, you didn't say that, but the implication is that you are comfortable with what you're doing and where you are. That to me is like the beginning.
Oh, yeah. And that's why it's important to try a whole bunch of techniques to see what's comfortable. What we want to be able to do is turn away from the immediacy of our lives, the way that our brains tell us that we're going, the way the chatter, those 70,000 thoughts a day are telling us what needs to happen next and what ought to be the case and what did that mean and all the rest of it. We want to be in a place where we are comfortable enough to let go of all of that and just be present. And for some people, that's sitting upright on a purple pillow in lotus position with all of these chakras in our spines aligned and our crown chakra pointing straight up from the center of the earth. Yeah. And for other people, that's really uncomfortable. I'm much more comfortable in an easy chair slouching, with one foot on the floor and the other foot crossed over my other knee. If that's what lets you turn away from the immediacy of the physical and the experience that we're having so that we can open up to a bigger picture, do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And don't try and figure it out before you do it. Try it. And if it doesn't work, say, cross that one off. There's only about 100,000 more techniques I can try.
I always like that term you use, turn away from, because it's very deliberate and it's something that you have to do. I don't think that maybe you can ease into it at some point, but there's so much going on in the world and so much going on in our lives. I mean, just stuff. And to turn away from it is an intentional act. Mm-hmm. And I like that idea. I can't breathe my way into it. I mean, it's cool. I'm telling you, it's fine. I really don't want anybody to think that I'm, throwing shade on breath work, because I do that also. But I think when I met you and you first used that term, turn away from, I said, you know what? I know how to do that. I'm done with this. I am not, you're over there, and this is what's happening in my world right now. And like I said, the only time that didn't work was when my Great Dane was with me, but I even worked with that. You get comfortable.
Well, and you threaded the needle there because you did what was necessary to do so that you could cohabit with your Great Dane and do a meditation. Because he wasn't going to sit outside calmly and peacefully and wait for you to get done. No, there's going to be something else. There's going to be something else going on there. Let's take another break, and we'll do a prayer and meditation. Basically a prayer about being able to meditate. How about that?
Yeah.
It's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at BeTheLight.com. That's B-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at BeTheLight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you, and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We have been having a wonderful conversation about meditation and about the 10,000 or 100,000 or limitless number of ways that we can meditate. I was thinking as we were talking, I've had this meditative practice for years and years and years of 15 minutes in the silence. And in the class that a book that we were studying earlier in the year, got the input of count breaths. It's like, why? And the idea was count to 25 and then start over. And what'll happen is if you lose count, that's because the thought distracted you. Start over again at 1. And if you find yourself at number 48, you stop paying attention and went on autopilot, start over again at 1. And it was a really simple technique. And I said, I'm going to give that a try. And it took me much deeper into the meditative practice that I was already doing. And then it turns out that because I do 5-minute intervals, and I've spent as much time as I did scuba diving and I'm aware of my breathing, is that I can breathe 5 breaths a minute and see if breath number 25 comes out at the 5-minute mark when the chime goes off. And then it was time to stop doing that practice because it got me thinking.
I was going to say, you were just having a good time.
There's too many of us in this one little head over here. The idea, though, is to try something and then try something else and then evaluate which one is better for me, not which is the best meditation. We can't do that. 8 billion people on the planet. There could be 8 billion different meditative practices. Just keep trying new things. See what works for you. And if you find something that works for you and then somebody suggests something else, give that a try. It's not like you need to switch over to that completely, but maybe there's going to be a nuance that can get added on top of it that will bring a deeper awareness of our connection with spirit. And that's what meditation is about. It's about opening that channel of awareness. So we're not opening the channel between us and spirit. We are already completely connected with spirit. That's the true nature of who we are. We are spirit made manifest. But we forget. We get distracted. So the intention is to open our awareness to our spiritual truth and then let the infinite fill us with whatever the infinite is going to be filling us with the next. And we can invite what that's going to be. And that's part of the prayer practice. Let's do a prayer today on choosing a meditative practice that serves us well. How's that for combining modalities there?
Got you. I'm with you.
Yeah. So let's turn away from the stuff that's going on around us. It's still going to be there. We can close our eyes and go within. Turn away from the details of the world outside. Turn away from the 70,000 thoughts that our minds come up with every day. Our minds are going to keep on thinking, and we are simply going to spend a few moments not thinking with them. Opening to a new possibility, opening to a new awareness. Inviting that infinite creative power, that divine intelligence, that one that knows everything, that creates everything, that shares itself as all of its creation, that one that dwells within, has the ability to inform us, to guide us, to let us know what is the next perfect step for us to take. That infinite creative power, that divine mind, of which each of us is an individualized mind. That one mind is now informing us, each in our own way, of that next perfect meditative practice to try. It gets to be different for everybody. It doesn't need to be the be-all and end-all, the one that we're going to settle on for the rest of our lives. It is simply the next perfect step to take in the evolutionary path of deepening into our spiritual awareness and a rich and satisfying and uplifting meditative practice. So that's what I'm inviting. That's what I'm claiming for each of us. That divine clarity on exactly the next perfect meditative practice to engage in. The inspiration to do something new or to tweak something that's been going on for a while. The guidance is at hand. There's no wrong answer. And I know that each one is fulfilled and uplifted with exactly the right idea for this next moment. This next perfect opportunity to deepen into our connection with the infinite is at hand. And I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the wisdom that we get. I'm grateful for the awareness that we embody. And I'm grateful to be able to speak this word of intentionality, of opening, of invitation, and release it into that creative law that creates everything. And I'm grateful to know without any doubt, hesitation, or question whatsoever that the infinite is already saying yes. The guidance is already underway. The inspiration is already flowing. So I let it be. So it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.